to the Denver Conference of Global Sciences. I thought we had people stopped from talking, but we didn't. I'm sorry. I've asked Richard Work to introduce his wife, who will be our next speaker, Anne Marie Work. So will you bring them on, both, with a new Denver welcome, please. Richard and Anne Marie.
Good morning. Each one of you should be holding a booklet with a sheet enclosed. If you do not have one, reach on the seat next to you, behind you, and so forth, or hold up your hand and we'll see that you get one. It is my pleasure this morning to introduce Anne Marie. The Anne Marie you see standing here this morning has extended sight. With your permission, she can see inside your body. She can see inside the nucleus of an atom. She can see the very pure photon energy at the core of the atom. But even beyond that, she can see and perceive the interaction of energies working with each other even before they come in contact, and what the result will be from that. She also has the ability to communicate with all consciousness, anywhere, anytime, throughout creation. And because of these abilities, she is one of the leading physicists on this planet, and because of that, she works with some of the leading physicists on this planet. And because of that, she had been used by the CIA to create some of the most advanced technology this planet has ever seen. When she became consciously aware that this use of her technology was not being used for the benefit of humanity, she then decided to spend the rest of her time to create tools to counteract that which they have used against you, and tools to assist you in the healing you desire. But this is not the Anne Marie that was born onto this planet. She was born as a simple farm girl in mid-Wisconsin. At the age of 18 months, she had her first severe accident that put her in the hospital for an extended stay. At the age of 3, she developed spinal meningitis so severely that they shot every drug known to man into her body, trying to save her. And as a result of that, she became allergic to all known drugs. Finally, the doctor went to her parents and said, "It's a blessing your daughter has passed on," because had she lived, she would have been deaf, dumb, blind, and a vegetable forever. Her brain was fried. As her mother went back into the room to pay her last respects, she found Anne Marie sitting up and smiling. She says, "I feel all better now. Can I go home?" Because her immune system had been destroyed, she remained in and out of hospitals continuously. She missed 50% of her school days, never attended a Phi Ed class, never participated in a sport. At the age of 20, she developed the symptoms of multiple sclerosis. And for the next 10 years, the doctors worked very hard to convince her it was all in her head. At the age of 30, they finally put a name on it: malignant progressive MS, the type that kills. By all medical yardsticks, she should have been dead 10 years ago. But instead, she chose to heal herself. Her body continued to deteriorate over time until one leg was half the size of the other. Sometimes she couldn't talk, sometimes she couldn't write, sometimes she couldn't walk. And finally, one time, after a 7-day severe aspiration in bed, unable to lift her arms, had to be fed, rolled over, carried to the bathroom, she finally said, "God, this is only existing, it's not living. I no longer choose to live this way. You now have one of two choices. You can welcome me home, or you can show me the way to conquer MS, and I will share it with the world." This she did, and her incredible journey she will unfold for you, and she has been symptom-free for the past 12 years. And with that, will you please welcome Anne Marie Work.
Thank you. We're going to be turning the tape off now, so if you get this find easiest to describe to the masses, when you would ask, if you would ask in public, "How did I get this gift?" I would say that it is a gift from God, and that will always be my answer in the future. These gifts that I have allowed me to understand the full complexity of vibration and frequency and how one waveform affects another. Let me give you a little bit of understanding that I have of my own childhood. As a child, I could always see frequency. I have always been able to see frequency. That has never, I don't see the way the average person sees. Rich mentioned at age 3, when I had died of spinal meningitis, when I awoke, there were angels standing around my bed, and it is the first memory that I have of seeing into that world, but that seeing never quit. So I see your guardian angels around you. I see your aura. I see energy interacting. I see how you're sitting, how the energy is interacting with the person you're sitting next to. Those are things that I cannot shut off. I do not see any depth or breadth because I have learned how to shut it off, or I couldn't drive a car. All I'd see is energy moving. I have to be able to see physical structure, so I have turned quite a bit of it down on a regular basis. I never understood, and I asked many people what I was seeing, and nobody was able to explain it to me. When the doctor told me that I was dying of multiple sclerosis, you suddenly think to yourself, maybe I should start looking at what I see and figuring it out. And it is when I began figuring out what I was looking at. And what I realized was that I could use my own breath inside of my own body to start affecting movement of energy on my whole being. And I started developing a breath technique. I call it harmonic synchronistic attunement. You've got a little booklet, and on the back you will see I've listed my tape. And this is a tape that I share. It's a 1-hour attunement where I lead you through using your lungs, using your breath to restore the breath of life in every cell of your being. So I started studying because I could see how my liver reacted and my stomach reacted and my spine reacted to the way that I would use my breath. And I actually began moving energy inside my body until my body simply healed itself. And that is the breath work that I teach today. But let me explain to you how and why it works. And I'm going to be talking in very simple terms. I know you read on there that I am a photon technologist and I work with physicists and I am this great scientist, but I will not try to use any language that the average person cannot understand. So I'm going to be talking very straightforward and very simple without a lot of big encyclopedia language. I drive the other scientists crazy. Because I say, put that in layman's terms, so I know how to go out and speak it to the world. Every time you have a stress, you've all heard about stress being the cause of chronic disease, right? And you all know that negative emotions are the cause of chronic disease. You ever wondered how an emotion can become degenerative tissue? Anybody want to know how that actually happens? Because if you know how that happens, you can reverse it. So let's take a look at this. Every time you have a stress, you hold your breath. Mental, emotional, physical stress, you hold your breath. If you all got up right now and stubbed your toe, you'd discover parts after you said your favorite words, you would discover you were holding your breath. And this can happen several times a day. You're on a continuum of wellness. Up at the top is high-level wellness, down at the bottom is low-level wellness. Somewhere in between is absence of symptoms or disease, but absence of symptoms is not high-level wellness. There's space in between there. Your symptoms, your physical symptoms, are caused from your toxic emotions, the combination of your toxic emotions, toxic chemicals, and genetic weaknesses. The toxic emotions are the cause of disease. Oh, by the way, just turn to your page booklet, 4 and 5, it's all in writing. This is the harmonic booklet. And those of you listening to the tape, you can call the 800 number and get this little booklet, 1-800-243-6156. Okay, we got that out of the way for the tape. The simplicity of healing is that the negative emotions are the cause of disease, The negative toxins are the catalyst for the disease, and your genetic weaknesses is where it's going to land and what it's going to be called. But there's only one disease, and that disease is low-level wellness. If we all of a sudden understood there's only one disease, how simple it would be to end this process now. There's only one thing that makes a difference as to where you're at on that continuum of wellness, and that's the flow and amplitude of your life force energy. And since there's only one thing that makes a difference, you better know what your life force energy is. That's that energy that moves in and around every cell of your body, in and around and through the meridian systems, the chakra systems, and out into your aura, and it is supposed to be in constant motion. If all of your life force energy were gone right now, you'd be pronounced dead, right? If any of your life force energy is diminished to any one of your 100 trillion cells, that cell is degenerating. And if the life force energy is cut off, that cell is dead or dying. You die and degenerate one cell at a time, but you live and rejuvenate the same way. And as you reestablish the flow and amplitude of your life force energy to any part of your body, the blueprint, the Creator created you in such a magnificent way that the blueprint is there and your body can simply heal itself. If you were to cut your finger right now and wash it and put some antiseptic on it and put a Band-Aid on it, in a couple days you'd take that Band-Aid off and voila, a miracle. The finger is healed. And you run around the neighborhood and you knock on everybody's door and you say, "It's a miracle! Oh God, it's a miracle! My finger healed!" You don't do that? You really don't do that? Why don't you do that? You expected it. You expected it to heal. Why? Because you know your body is capable of healing itself. Do you realize the same thing is true inside the abdomen? All you have to do is provide a positive internal and external environment and the body heals itself. If you had gotten that finger dirty and it had become infected, and maybe even gangrene set in, you could have lost your hand, you could have lost your life. It's the environment you supply, because the blueprint for healing exists. It's a universal law. So what do we have to do to create that healing environment inside of our body? Let's go back to step number one. Every time you're under stress, you hold your breath. And every time you hold your breath, you slow down the flow and amplitude of your life force energy. And some parts of your body hold their breath the rest of your life. In Awaken to the Healer Within, it is the book that I co-authored with Rich Work. We have a copy back at the table. It's called Awaken to the Healer Within. And again, in the back of your booklet, you'll see the title of the book. I have several pages in the back of that book that outline what part of your body is holding its breath if you have such and such a condition. Let me give you an example. If you have osteoporosis, your collarbones are holding their breath. Your collarbones held their breath the first time you reacted to an emotional abuse. Usually that happens around 3 or 4. Because how many of you know any 2 or 3-year-olds that absolutely know they're magnificent? And this is the way they walk, right? And they know. Anybody know any 2 or 3-year-olds that know they're magnificent? How many of you were ever 2 or 3? When did you forget? I'm going to suggest that you forgot that you were magnificent the first time you held your breath in response to something that was not your truth. We call it emotional abuse. You were less than. And you start believing you're less than, and you go into this slump. Now, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but most of you know this slump. If I were to scold a dog right now, it'd go like this. Shoulders go down, collarbone locks in, sternum locks in, tailbone tucks in between the legs. And even though yours isn't fluffy, your tailbone still goes in, and you slough off into the corner. If you don't intentionally bring that back up and out, you might be that way the rest of your life. Now, If I were to go into that position and I walk, this is not a bad walk, right? But how much of my body is moving? Not much. Because I'm locked up. But if I lift my breastbone just enough to open my solar plexus about 1/4 of an inch, take a breath, and I walk, any difference? The flow and amplitude of my life force energy is now moving again. And so this is one of the things that we teach in our tapes and our books, is how to get that flow and amplitude of your life force energy. Now, how does this relate to photon technology? I'm taking you into the photon of the body first, and then we'll talk about the big technology out there. In the body, as you slow down this life force energy, inside your atoms of your body is a nucleus, protons and electrons, and photon energy. And the photon energy is the energy that's moving and breathing with you. It is the consciousness. It is the essence of God that lives within you. I always say, when you meet the photon, you meet God. That's where science and religion come together. As you slow down the flow of your life force energy, you slow down the flow of the photon energy in your atomic structure. Pretty soon, the protons and electrons no longer communicate. You've all seen these plus and minus signs the electrical charges of the proton. They stop communicating when the photon energy slows down, and that short circuits the communication throughout your entire universe of 100 trillion cells. Pretty soon your liver cannot communicate with your stomach, your kidneys do not communicate with your brain, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The parts of your body no longer communicate with one another. And the biggie, the RNA, architects and engineers of your body, can no longer see or perceive the original blueprint called the DNA. And the RNA and DNA can no longer communicate. It would be like having a big blueprint up here on the back wall, and somebody walks in and turns off the lights, and you're supposed to build this building. And you can't see the blueprint because the light was turned off. There are many different techniques, because you know of all kinds of people who have healed themselves of all kinds of various diseases. I'm going to suggest they do one thing. They are finding a way to increase the flow and amplitude of their life force energy, which increases the flow and amplitude of the photon energy within the body. And when the photon energy moves, it actually appears to light up. So when we reestablish the natural state of photon, we call it becoming enlightened. And you see this in an auric field as light radiating from the body. So as we move into higher and higher levels of photonic movement, we move into light. And you've heard other speakers talking about the importance of being light. And this is how it all happens. It's really very simple. You slow down the photon and you start moving into darkness like a dimmer switch. And in the physical body, that means death and degeneration and premature aging. So, how many of you are aware that they've done this genetic study on the mammals of the world and have found what age each species should begin to age? Are you aware that the human species should begin to age at 120? Anybody know anybody prematurely aging? There are some scientists that are refuting that and say it really should be 200 or 250. Breathe. Open up that solar plexus and take a breath. Tonight in our workshop, Rich is going to be talking about some of the things I'm going to be mentioning now in the next few minutes. Rich's workshop is right after lunch. His lecture is right after lunch, okay? And tonight in our combined workshop, I'm actually going to be leading you through an attunement with the breath, not only to awaken the life force energy and the photon energy within your body, but to reconnect the fountain of youth. When Ponce de Leon was looking for the fountain of youth, he was looking in the wrong place. It was inside his body, not outside. And I'm going to show you where it is inside your body and show you how to reactivate it. Do you know that this beautiful young man who introduced me has been on the earth for 72 years? Yeah. Activate the fountain of youth. It works. And I looked 50 20 years ago. The wrinkles are gone. It works. So we're going to be sharing that with you tonight as part of his talk, because those of you that are new here and didn't hear the announcement, Rich is talking instead of Anna Hayes at right after lunch. I think it's the 1:55. It's the first talk, and his talk is called Sovereignty from Controlling Energies. So you can make that note on your flyers. There are various means and methods that you can utilize to increase the flow of life force energy in your body and increase the flow of the photon energy at the atomic level to enlighten the physical intelligence of your body, to reconnect the body, the mind, heart and soul, or body, mind, and soul connection, however you choose to put that, and so that you can start to become all that you were meant to be. Because you each hold within you an incredible gift of the expression of divine love, and that's what makes each of you so magnificent. And you knew that when you were 2 or 3, and it's time to remember that again. And as your photon energy increases, you will remember. You will remember the gifts that you came to share with the world. You will also have incredible creative ideas in share and how you're going to share that with the world. So, if you were going to try and control masses of people, knowing what I have just told you, what would be the first thing you would want to do? Slow down the flow of the photonic energy at the atomic level in all of those people walking around that we want to control. Now, start looking at everything you know about the technology that's out there, from HAARP to ELF waves to maybe things that you don't even know about that you're going to hear about in the next 5 to 10 years. All of those devices, I'm going to give you the simplest, I'm not going to give you megahertz and all this type of thing, I'm going to give you the simplest language I can give it to you in. All of these devices are designed to carry a wave, a frequency through the atmosphere that impacts the physical body. And then it has a secondary matrix of frequencies that most scientists never look at, so you won't see it reported in the material that's being fed to you. There's a secondary matrix of frequencies riding with this first one. The first one impacts and opens you up. The second frequencies literally embody on a cellular level and leave residues inside of your being. Discordant energy patterns that continually put you into a state of degeneration and premature aging. Bottom line, that's what all these technologies do. Because if you had a herd of 6 billion to control, how would you do it? You'd find something simple. And if the herd got too big, what would you do? You'd thin it. If you saw that there wasn't going to be enough food to feed the herd, if you saw that there wasn't going to be enough fuel to heat the herd's homes, and if you saw that we were running out of supplies on the face of the earth, you'd thin the herd. If I took the Illuminati out of charge today, and I put you in charge of the earth, knowing what I've just said, what would you do? What would you do? How are you going to feed when we're 12 billion, when we're 20 billion? I want you to start thinking about that, all of you that are trying to stop disease and degeneration, because believe me, I had to. because I have created devices that stop degeneration and aging and disease. And believe it or not, before I ever put them on the market, I had to look at what are we going to do to feed them if they continue to live 150 to 200 years. So I want you to put yourself in my place and figure it out. I want you to vision what you'd like the world to look like 200 years from now. And as you vision what you would like the world to look like 200 years from now, then I want you to write down 10 major categories, maybe health, maybe education, 10 major categories that are going to have to be considered to get you from point A to point B. And then I want you to look at yourself and imagine that you have all the money, all the energy, all the resources, all the support. And what are you going to do to take the world you live in today into the world that you are going to live in, that you have visioned 200 years from now? Because you're still going to plan to be here, right? And then what I want you to do is take one of those 10 subjects that's dearest to your heart. And I want you to figure out how you're going to actively participate with the money, energy, and resources and support you physically have right now. Not if you win the lottery, not if somebody gives you an inheritance, just what you have right now, nothing more. And what are you physically going to do in the next 12 months? What action are you going to take to change the world into the one you want it to look like 200 years from now, to not only affect you, but also your descendants, your children and your grandchildren? Do this exercise and start becoming active in the celebration of life and in the change and the evolution that is taking place in this millennium. Now let's get back. In this booklet, I have described several tools and how they affect the photon energy of your physical body. I'm not going to get all my information in. Would you ask the question at the end, please? Totally lost my train of thought. The booklet describes, okay, but where I wanted to go. Enable to disempower people. The frequency that's set out over the television stations, via HARP, LFA sonar, etc., I could go on and on and on. The main frequency that is riding on top of any other frequency, whatever the agenda is a frequency that will knock your atlas out of alignment. The atlas is at the base, at the top of the spine, the base of the skull. The atlas has an energetic matrix as well as a physical existence. I can energetically use a frequency to knock all of your atlases off balance right now. I know how to do it. Been there, done that. Well, if I know how to do that, I also know how to put them back in. I have spent the last 3 years totally devoting my life to create tools and techniques to reverse everything that they, whoever they are doing. So as you look through this booklet, understand that I am using the same tools they're using. Waveforms with intent, with specific secondary matrices that take the discordant frequencies out of their disharmonic state into their harmonic state. There's only one energy, it's harmonic. Comes into this universe through this veil of forgetfulness, and we turn it into disharmonic. You turn love into fear, joy into anger, chaos, harmony into chaos. You've just taken a harmonic into a disharmonic, but you can reverse the disharmonic right back into the harmonic. And it's very simple, and it's called the art of transmutation. It's spiritual alchemy, and that's what Rich Work is going to be talking about right after lunch, and it teaches you how to do it for yourself in his book, Proclamations of the Soul. You are the spiritual alchemist. You can take any disharmonic pattern or frequency back into its harmonic state. Healing is that simple. Healing is only a shift in consciousness, and that's the shift. So what I did was I started developing tools. The first tool that I developed is, well, the first technology I developed was the ability to take a substance, turn it into a computer chip, and to amplify the frequency of my choice out in however I wanted to do that. And that's why you're going to see as you look at the booklet, each one of those tells you how the waveforms were intended to do what. In my liquid formulas, I used an amorphous silica, which is a fine powdered silica, and I changed the water into what I call crystalline water. The water that is in these formulas has been changed into a computer chip. And as this goes into your body, these are internal substances. The first one is called restoration. In 1994, the International Dowsers Convention in London, England, could find no living water left on the face of the earth. Living water is supposed to have a pulse. It pulses with the hertz of the earth. Of course, I call it the heartbeat of the earth. And what I developed at that time was a product called Restoration. We put 4 drops into a gallon of water, and you will feel the pulse of life return to the water. It will transmute the negative secondary frequencies that have been infused into the groundwater via all of these negative technologies we have out there. It instantly transmutes all of that energy, and when this energy goes into your body, it activates the lymphs and reestablishes the pulse and rhythms within your body. How many people know people whose hearts are out of rhythm? Yeah. And there's no reference point for them to go back into, because the water they're drinking doesn't pulse with the pulse of the earth, and our hearts are supposed to pulse with the pulse of the earth. And drinking the restored water brings that back. This bottle will restore 300 gallons of water. Well, actually, it's this one, but the rejuvenation is, oh, and the other thing about this restoration, because it brings all of your rhythms and pulses back into balance, it calms you. It's called the calming formula. So we also have a half-ounce bottle, and where do you think I put the half-ounce bottle before my talk today? Right over my heart center. Keeps my rhythms and pulses right centered and balanced, and that's why I'm not falling apart on the stage right now. Okay. Rejuvenation activates the immune system. It actually activates the denser things. The restoration works with the waters of our body, and we're 90% water. This one works with the densest parts of our body. And the rejuvenation, if I were to burn my hand right now and put the rejuvenation on, I would watch my hand heal itself. Why? Because that's what it was created to do. And all I did was increase the flow and amplitude of life force energy by putting these drops of light photonic energy on the burn. And we have many, many testimonies to that. Everybody seems to have to burn themselves after they get the bottle just to prove it's true. How many of you are aware that it takes 6 to 8 weeks to heal the aura of a broken limb, but it only takes 20 minutes to heal the bone? So I broke my finger a couple months ago to prove this. Now, Rich conveniently had me hold something and roll this incredible, I don't know how many 100-pound drawer over my finger and totally smashed it, split it wide open, and of course you could see the bone all. It was a compound fracture. And I'm looking at this in excruciating pain. Doing what? Holding my breath. Yes. So the first thing I did was crawl into the house and grab my bottle of rejuvenation and start running it over my finger. And within 2 minutes I went, and the pain was gone. Because pain is blocked energy. And the minute the energy is moving, pain ceases to exist. So now we're looking at this mangled finger without pain. And I position his hands over here, and I got my hand going over here, and we start healing the aura. And about 5 minutes later, I noticed the finger is not straight. So we started energetically pulling the finger straight. And with a half an hour, my finger was completely healed. It was still split open, but it was completely healed. I went to bed and slept all night without pain. The next day, the wound was almost completely sealed because I had added life force energy to it. Within 3 days, I was typing on my computer again. Healing is not difficult. You just need to understand that you need to get the energy moving, and that's the key. So this frequency that they have been sending through the television stations and HARP and all of this other stuff, the very first frequency is a frequency that knocks your atlas out of alignment. So what I did was I took the computer chip idea and turned acrylic into a computer in which I have embedded waveforms. And I developed what's called an environmental harmonizer. And when these are in a row, and I'll put them out straight real quick, and Millie, break that one down by the table, please, if there's one on the table. And we're just going to leave this for a minute without it being up. Anybody feel the negative energy in this room from the fluorescent lights and from are you feeling the shift? Yeah. This is what this room would feel like if I didn't have one of these set up back there at my table. It's starting to get denser, isn't it? In another 5 minutes, you'd start getting very uncomfortable. This room has a terrible chaotic energy in it. And what I did was develop a way that when I put these 4 columns together, they activate themselves. So I just want you to pay attention to what happens to the energy in here. I have now put them together. And instantly, they form a vortex of energy, covering not just this room, but 2 floors up, the entire breadth of this building, and 2 floors down. There. Everybody feel the difference? You can breathe now. It neutralizes or transmutes radiation, residues from HARP, electromagnetic energies, TVs, computers, microwaves, you name it. All of this is brought back into its harmonic state of being. It even affects your emotions, takes you out of disharmony into harmony. And we just put a little band around it and set it on the table. And we are now protected from disharmonic energies. The next tool that I created is called a full body activator. It is a 20-minute sequence of waveforms. This one you will feel more than any others because you can actually feel the waves going through your body. The primary intent, balance the atlas. Because I want everybody to remember what it's like to be empowered. When you balance the atlas, you become empowered. And you have the energy to carry forth the actions of your desires and to share your love in the manner that you would like to without fear and limitation. How we use these, if you turn to page 10 in your booklet, you will see a little body outline, and it shows you that you use these in a 20-minute attunement, and it actually does a cranial sacral attunement as you're laying in these, balancing the atlas, which then balances the spine, the energy systems, the glands, the cranium, etc., etc., etc. I just got the 1-minute sign here. Watch how fast I can talk. The piece de la resistance, the harmonic liberator. And I really want you guys to look at this on page 8 and 9. At Rich's talk, we're going to give you a nice colored flyer about the liberator. The liberator, we all work electromagnetically. When you have a discordant frequency in your body, you magnetically attract it into your reality. So if you have malignant frequencies in your being, you can attract cancer into your world. If you have prosperity frequencies, what do you attract? So What we want to do is we want to remove the discordant frequencies, and we want you filled with the positive energy of the life force energy, the original soul consciousness of your being. What these do, step by step, is increase the movement of the photon energy at the atomic level, which increases, which enlightens, it actually turns into light inside of your body, relighting the blueprint, the DNA, so the RNA can read it. It starts lifting all discordant frequencies from genetics, chemicals, emotions, and trauma from your body. This is the major mind control deprogramming device because it takes all the residues of all the trauma out of the body, and people in weeks are able to remove all the residues of deprogramming and begin to integrate into a normal human being and have full access to all of their gifts. The full body activators rebalance the atlas, a major mind control tool, reversing the mind control of the masses. Maybe you haven't been MK Ultra'd, but you've been controlled through the media. Practically everything I have developed deals with one thing: releasing you from the grid of mind control, limitation, and separation, disease, and degeneration. And I'd invite you to come back and experience some of the tools I've created and see if they're right for you at this time in your life, because you are magnificent, divine beings of love that have some potential that you have just begun to understand. Thank you.